Welcome to Comic Book Nation's The Pool List, where we talk about all things comics all the time. We've got a ton to get to today, and I am joined by an amazing team of Kofi Outlaw and Jim Fiscardi. I am Matt Aguilar, and let's get to it. Not any preamble here. Let's just roll into it because we got a lot of things to get to. We're going to start with Batman, number 140. And for those who have followed Comic Book Nation over the last, year and a half, probably 2 years, we talked a lot about Chip Zdarsky and his Batman run from even before that with Batman the Knight and now into his core Batman run. And this is kind of the next big chapter after Gotham War, picking up all the fail-safe things off the Zur and R. All of those little plot threads are all kind of culminating into one big event in Mind Bomb. And I guess the way I want to frame it here, kind of moving forward, is like at this point we've seen four arcs. This is like the fourth major arc, and then Gotham War. So between all of those, and now that we're seeing how all those plans are progressing, if we look ahead and go, if he nails the landing, is this Chip Zdarsky run of Batman going to be kind of one of those, must-have collections in like 5 years where everyone's pointing back to that kind of all-time great Batman set? Because it's an impressive list of Batman. I mean, of all the characters, I think Batman and Spider-Man probably have the longest list of great runs.
Yeah.
But, what do you guys think of that? Do you think that's possible? How you liking the story so far? Where'd you like it going from here?
I think that it'll be up there in runs. I don't know about greatest of all time. I think we've had some pretty odd landings to a lot of the stories that we've had. Like a lot of them feel like they go in a certain way. Then we kind of have these like quick kind of cuts to other things. But as you said, this issue kind of impressively pulls things together, because I think the Knight was this very complete kind of origin story of Batman we haven't gotten before. And that was probably the best shaped story arc we've gotten from Zdarsky. But this issue impressively pulls together, as you said, everything that we've kind of gone through. It begins to kind of coalesce into one thing in this issue. All the stuff from Failsafe comes back around, from Batman's weird kind of multiversal journey in the Batman of Gotham kind of goes around. The stuff with Joker that's been building up over the last couple of years as Joker's run rampant and done all kinds of maniacal stuff in Gotham City and beyond. So it kind of is all, and of course the Batman of Zen-Ra, who's been like Zur and R. I can't stand. I just call it Zur. Okay, that's all I'm going with. So Zur, the Batman, the Zur Batman has been this kind of onslaught thing building in the background for a long time. And so when he brought that back, even we were all like, there were a lot of things that Chip Zdarsky kind of pulled on that we were like, okay, I guess, that's kind of weird, but sure. But it's kind of interesting to see it coming together in this. And it's at least interesting to see Bruce Wayne having to basically take on himself as a villain, and where we end up in kind of setting up a real possible lasting villain threat in the Batman universe is kind of very. Twitter fake out. I mean, the cover doesn't help that whole thing, but I think Joker was just more a device in this, and it's about what's going on as Batman's, because all of this is just in immediate action. Like physically, he is chasing Joker while internally this other thing is happening. And so.
Kind of, as a villain in this aspect, where I think it's, for me, this feels like the real start of Chip's run. I liked the arc before this, but this feels like where it finally feels like Chip finally is kind of like setting up like, okay, like this is what I really want like my Batman run to kind of look like, right? Because I think when you consider it to like all-time Batman runs, I even like just look at some two more recent ones where like I liked Tom King's Batman run, but I don't think it's like an all-time, maybe put it up there. But I think like for a more recent one to kind of compare it against, I compare it to the things that like Scott Snyder gave us with his run, right? Like there's a lot there that you could feel even at the time was going to be stuff that was going to stick with the Batman mythos for a while, right? Like Court of Owls, I think is a great example of that. And a number of the other things he did there. And so that said, right, like this is the most, I guess, Batman book as far as like having greater implications on the world of Batman and all of that I think we've gotten kind of in a while. And because of that, like I'm excited. But to me right now, like Chip's Batman pales to how I felt his Daredevil run went.
Yeah.
Which I know like they're two different characters. And it's two different kind of things, but like I loved what Chip was doing there, even from an emotional standpoint, from plotting out action and stuff like that. And so I just don't feel like it has clicked as much yet.
Yeah, I think his run has been like a mix of Scott Snyder and Grant Morrison in some kind of weird ways, and I feel like it falls somewhere between those two. But I think there's a couple things. I think that Batman the Knight is still one of the best single story arcs of Batman I've read in a long time. I still think somebody needs to make that a series on Max, like absolutely. And Tom King had, I think, just kind of referencing his run, I still think he had some of the best single issues of Batman I've ever read in years.
Right.
Like the Alfred Memorial one, stuff like that, and City of Bane and all that. But I think you're right. I think this is kind of an interesting start to where Chip Zdarsky might be able to dig in. And I like that low key, what this is kind of doing is it's really kind of examining Batman, comic book Batman versus like the darker, edgier Batman that people have said they've wanted in society, because that's essentially what his Zur is.
Right.
It's just edgelord Batman at all times. And now he's like edgelord Batman in a cyborg body. So it's like, so it's kind of a twisted Batman Beyond almost like, and now we're going to go see somebody who has the capability of full-time Batmaning. And it's just like, what does that look like versus like what Bruce Wayne is doing? And I think Chip Zdarsky is less interested in Batman as he is Bruce Wayne.
Sure.
And I think at the core of this, and I even notice this like when I'm writing about it, I stop calling him Batman when I'm writing about it, and I start just for differentiation's sake, when you're trying to read about this stuff, otherwise your brain will melt. I just start calling him Bruce a lot. Like, and that's kind of what it does though. Like even in this issue, you feel like we're getting back to Bruce and like who Bruce is and like how he looks at Batman. And I feel like we could come out of this with a very different outlook for who Batman sees himself as and what kind of Batman he's trying to be. And I'm interested in that.
For sure.
Well, I'm very glad you guys sounded so great on it. And I wish I could have heard that amazing discussion, but I will go back and listen to it later.
Oh, wait, did we lose you?
Amazing things he said.
We may have lost you for a little bit.
Okay. It's amazing. But no, for me, I will say that there's a lot of Batman stories that rank pretty high up top for me. This one, just because of all the way the ideas are coming together and how everything is weaving between each other and having an actual effect on the Bat family and Gotham, things like that. It's a real run, and if you stick the landing, I think it will be one of the top Batman runs moving forward because of all the work they've done to, as Kofi was just alluding to, all the stuff just like Bruce and Batman as separate entities and what all that means and all that stuff, and how Batman is really his own worst enemy in so many different ways. I'd
also like to say
it's impressive.
It is great to see Jorge Jimenez back in top form. I was not the biggest fan of the stuff he did recently on Nemesis, but man, like seeing him do Batman stuff is just always a freaking highlight.
Gorgeous.
Yeah.
And seeing all the like current art variations and what he puts to those, it's fantastic. Kofi, did you want to add anything?
No, I did a whole diatribe. I think I got it all out. If you listen back, like I got a whole thing out. Like, I got it all out. I'm good. Yeah, I'm good. I went back to Tom King. I did it all. Don't worry about it, buddy. I got it covered. I did the thing. You can move on.
Let's move to the Amazing Spider-Man 39, which we had talked about First Strike, which was kind of like a prologue Amazing Spider-Man Gang War event. And it did the job it needed to do. It set up everything, showed who all the key players were, and also told a fun and story, also setting up all those foundational blocks. But this one kind of hits the ground running, and I feel like if you read that First Strike, like for me, I was raring to go. So when like this book hit, I cruised through it. This was so fun, and it's bringing back this like classic Spidey vibe that I've been missing for so long. It takes me back all the way to like grade school when I first discovered Spider-Man, and it's just that feeling of like seeing all the other characters interact with him. I genuinely laughed out loud at several points. The She-Hulk Spidey stuff is fantastic. There's a whole back and forth when like, "Are you standing behind me?" He's like, "No," and he's like, "You are standing behind me." There's a whole back and forth. It's like classic stuff that I actually kind of hope to see on the MCU screen one day. I hope we get to see that replicated. But I just think this is hitting all the right notes, and it's I don't know. I just think there's just this vibe that's like X Factor that I can't really describe. Also, I will say, I know me and Jim get into it a lot of times on Ramita, back and forth. I think this is the best Ramita artwork I have seen in some time. This was fantastic.
Oh, ye of little faith, right? Like,
Ramita
man, is a legend for a reason, Matt.
Sometimes they're not for me, but this book, that like montage of, well, actually, all the action scenes in this are great, but like the montage of all the heroes sitting on the rooftop, that is beautiful. That is quintessential Ramita. That is fantastic. So yeah, it's just bringing the good vibes for me, and I hope it does the same for other people. But what about you? What you guys think?
I think for me, I don't know what it is about like Marvel street hero level stuff that just never really clicks with me.
Jeez.
That's not where I thought that was going.
I like Spidey stuff when it's like kind of bit like, and I get it, right? Like I know whatever, but I like it when it's like kind of a bit wackier and zanier in my Spider-Man. And so like for that reason, like I'm probably not going to be reading many of the tie-ins, and I'm sure I'll miss a bunch of stuff there. But as far as this is concerned, like look, I've been a huge fan of this run, and I think Zeb does so much in his like just his Spider-Man dialogue is phenomenal. And I'm in it for this, but like this is one of those things where like I'll probably read it a little bit faster just because there's parts of it I just won't care about.
Wow. Okay. Everybody has freedom to have a take, and that is a take. I think I was kind of unabashedly clear on when we started Gang War that I am absolutely in the opposite pond as Jim here. Like, I think this started as a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, and all the classic stories were kind of street level stories. And yeah, all this Spider-Man Beyond and Beyond the Spider-Verse and all this stuff they've done with all this crazy stuff, I can't stand it. So this to me has been, again, like we were saying, was Zdarsky just beginning Batman. This feels like Zeb Wells finally getting to do less cleaning up the mess of Spider-Man and actually doing what he wants to do with Spider-Man and how he envisions Spider-Man as both the street level hero and this kind of, Spider-Man's always been paired with other heroes since the beginning. Like they've made whole things out of it, right? And it's because he's good when he's bouncing off somebody. As we said with She-Hulk in this issue, and him kind of crouching behind She-Hulk as, the powerhouse leader, and her being like, "Yo, dude, like, what are you doing?" And he's like, "I'm good." But yeah, this issue, Like, first of all, to get Zeb Wells in, like, with a classic team, you're talking about classic feel. Scott Hanna and John Romita Jr., anybody in the 90s Spider-Man fan, like, this is as classic as you can get without throwing Mark Bagley, like, behind this, right? So I liked what Romita did here. Like, he captures what we loved about Gang War, like the gangland underworld tone of it. There's a lot of great gangster scenes in this. Tombstone alone has never been more interesting to me than, you know, Tombstone and kind of like this issue. And I haven't kept up, but just seeing the drama with him and Joe Robertson, at least that sounds interesting to me, and their kids and all that. And so, yeah, this was good. And like you said, it hits the ground running, and it made me a firm believer that this is going to be a good and well-designed crossover. Because the premise is simple. We go at every issue and they're just like, look out the window. Everything's burning. Like, all these gangs are going at it. And we can jump scenes. Yep. We have like good, and we're using street level villains. It's not just the heroes. It's street level villains that don't really get a shine. Like, when's the last time you've been concerned about Hammerhead?
Well, you don't need no one needs to care about Hammerhead.
But that's the brilliance. You forget that.
What?
But you got to remember, like, in that period of the 70s, like, Marvel, like, because the streets were burning in like New York and beyond, like, Marvel did get deep into that gritty kind of street level stuff where these were kind of major characters, the gangs and the mobs of New York and all of that stuff. And so these were great characters, and it's they're kind of generic cheesy, but like now they're being used in interesting ways. Like, I'm concerned about how much Hammerhead is losing on the floor as Madame Mask is dragging him. Madame Mask is more terrifying than Madame Mask has ever been to me, because I don't even know what she's doing. She just has a room full of hostage people, and something terrible is happening in there. And I'm like, wow, this is getting kind of crazy. So there's edge, there's darkness, there's stakes. The gangsters are kind of interesting characters for the first time in a long time. And it's like you said, the street level heroes and their chemistry has been interesting so far. So I'm kind of looking forward to this. I like the Luke Cage tie-in, and it's just something that
it's good too.
The central premise is easy enough to build out from, and I'm digging it.
I mean, no one throws a punch like John Romita Jr., like, which is, I think, like, just one of the best aspects of Johnny's art.
I mean,
in this.
I got to give him credit for that scene that Kofi was like referencing, like the bringing Hammerhead downstairs. If you describe it like in a script, does not do like that scene for him to pull that out of like dude's head is banging off of stairs, blood's everywhere. He's mumbling stuff. The moment where we go into the doorway and he sees things, like, there's so much drama in that one page. It's fantastic. I just, I got to give him credit. Look, I will be the first to say, like, I have, you know, had issues sometimes with artwork in the past, but like this book was fantastic.
Crime Master and Ringmaster are like spotlight villains in this. That's wild.
Yeah, like, who cares? When's the last time someone cared about the Beetle?
Right? I mean? And the Beetle's now like a major cool player. Like, this is yo, if Cardiac shows up in this, Matt's gonna be it's all over
my
for
God.
Matt.
It's gonna
How
be
is he not running the medical sector?
Yeah, like, there's got
how is that not a thing?
What if he's protecting, like, what if he ends up protecting the hospital? Like, Cardiac.
See?
That'd be that happens.
See, me and Kofi are back on the same page.
If anybody's listening, if any comic creators, you guys have time, you can fit in some surprises to this Gang War thing. Matt would very much like a Cardiac appearance. That would set
that Cardiac one shot is coming, baby.
That would set his year on fire. So no, I mean, this is the most. This is like the Spidey story I've been most interested in years. Like, and I think when this gets collected as a trade, it's gonna be a fun one. Like,
Agreed. And also, I love how, you know, it weaves into the story of, hey, we all got to go separate directions. Like, that ties right into the Spider-Woman series. That ties into the Miles' series. Like, they're doing, it feels Daredevil, her going to Hell's Kitchen, right? It feels very organic in that way. Right. And so that's probably one of the more organic tie-ins premises that you've had recently, where you can go into all those other things and they feel justified and not just like, oh, I tacked on another story. They're just taking on other parts of the city.
Right. And it's simple. And it's simple to follow. Like, every hero goes to a place that you know they're from. Harlem, Hell's Kitchen, you know, Queens, whatever. There's a gang. It was some people we haven't seen before, and hopefully they're fun. Mm-hmm. And I hope the MCU is doing this, because I feel like there's a part of the MCU that could be kind of doing something similar to this, starting with like Daredevil, going into things like Ironheart with the hood and all of that. And I hope we get something similar like this, something where like New York is a little bit more dangerous. There's all these different gangs and heroes have something to do on like a smaller street level scale. I know, Jim, they won't be going through the multiverse.
I don't need them going through the multiverse. I like the more colorful Spider-Man villains, and like all of the street level ones just never.
It's
never
the
really
Beetle and Ringmaster. How much more colorful do you need?
Yeah, but like those are jobbers. They're jobbers.
Yeah, but they're colorful.
Dude, I mean, Hobgoblin, Green Goblin, two are like the greatest villain kind of unfoldings ever. Like, are still arguably more like street level villains than they are. Like,
see, I don't think so.
But because they are not like taking over the world. They're going after Spider-Man and doing it. And it's a battle where they're flying through New York streets and
right,
knocking people off.
Right. Okay.
Like, what villain are you talking about?
What do you mean?
Colorful.
Like which villain would you?
Oh, I love Spidey's classic rogue scale, right? Like I love Kraven, I love Vulture, Doc Ock, all those guys, right? Like who are a bit more eccentric, and I guess have had opportunities to have stories that brought a bit of gravitas. Look, maybe this is going to be the event that brings the gravitas to some of these jobbers, but I don't have my hopes up.
Bro, Madam Mask,
Doc Ock was here technically.
And like
Madam Mask has always been great. Tombstone, Tombstone has always been, he's never been a true threat to me as far as Spider-Man.
Well, I think now we got like Black Tombstone is different because this Tombstone feels like he's Black Tombstone. Like for real. Like that's just real. Like I read this and I was like, oh, I never really thought of Tombstone I always thought of him being like an Italian guy. Like I never thought of him about being a black dude, but now I'm like, yeah, clearly a black dude. So I like Black Tombstone. I'm here for it. Like, yeah.
So we got a bunch of books in the rapid fire here. So let's knock some of those out. Transformers #3. This was a huge week in comics. Transformers #3 hit. I know Jim is reading it in the studio. What'd you think?
I think this is setting up Transformers. There's an interesting thing that this is doing that we've never seen before, and I think we were circling it for the first couple issues. Is this one takes the essential premise that if these machines were real, it would be terrifying. And like, I never really considered that before because we're all like 80s kids like, oh man, look at that car change. And we're like, hey, that's great. But no, if these were real, that would be terrifying. Just like AI, we think like Terminators and stuff. Like, yeah, that'd be terrifying if Decepticons were, and you couldn't be sure if a vehicle would suddenly turn around and start like annihilating you. Like, and they capture that so well.
I never expected to consider Transformers an almost like on the borderline horror kind of book. And it is, I mean, shoot, Optimus like literally rips his arm off in this. And they're just like,
poor cliff jumper, man.
Yeah, right.
Right. That's what I mean. And so like, although there is a little bit of a weird continuity aspect to this thing where like Optimus rips his arm off and then like when he transforms back into the truck, like shouldn't like a big chunk of his truck form be missing? And that's a nitpick. But this is one of those things where
way to be one of those.
Yeah. No, I know. No, but no. This is we will say this time and time again. And I was telling Matt this earlier. I apparently only find myself on episodes of the pull list when Transformers is out, which is great. This is a book that is way more action thriller with, like I said, with like horror tinges on it, with like just kind of almost the grotesqueness of the violence in this, right? Like we've said over and over again, like this is a violent book, but it's almost a little bit more okay because it's, I guess, robot violence, and so we're fine. It just becomes a compelling read with every issue, and that is just the mark for me of like, that's what makes comics so great, right? Like, you want to read the next issue at the end of this. It's going to spark discussion from, in between the weight of it all. And it's setting up, right? Like this larger, Energon universe in a way that I would say probably some folks were skeptical of and now aren't, because I think the proof is in the pages. It's there, and it's just
also brought us full circle with that deer moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Called back.
Right.
Important.
I can't remember. In the original G1, is Spike paralyzed in that?
I don't.
I can't remember. Is there a version of Spike that was in a wheelchair? I can't remember. Anyway.
I don't remember. Moving into Birds of Prey number 4. I know Kofi wanted to touch on this because we get a big battle here that we've been kind of anticipating.
Oh, yeah. I mean, people have been picking up behind the scenes. I don't want to spoil any surprises in comic book, but like people are picking up behind the scenes that Kelly Thompson's really cooking in this book, and still like one of my favorite books every month. Every time I get so happy every time this comes out. Again, the artwork is so good. I love the kind of throwback look of it. But yeah, this one is on Themyscira, and Wonder Woman is involved, and they got to take on Wonder Woman. And it was about what I love and expected it would be from all those different characters and their encounters with Wonder Woman, from a Wonder Woman Big Barda fight that I didn't know I really wanted to see that bad, to just like more, seeing Cassandra Cain and all of this. This collection of characters is so good. The dialogue is so good, and just like it's a perfect mix of like drama, gravitas, and comedy. And yeah, I like this more so than we've seen kind of that weird kind of throwback, like all the Rogues series that we read and all those different things that we've seen of kind of these ragtag odd teams that they've been doing ever since the Suicide Squad movie came out. But this one has been like one of the best. Yeah.
For sure.
I'm going to roll through mine real quick. Blue Beetle number 4 is fantastic. A lot like Jim talks about Transformers every month. I talk about Blue Beetle, but it's one of those things where like you'll go from this big action set piece, which is gorgeous, to two people just like having a date, or the kind of almost like romantic comedy vibes. And it just goes between those two like elements so effortlessly. It's really impressive. And it's just such a fun book. The Jaime and I don't want to mispronounce the name because it's like in an alien language, and I feel like I'm always going to, but Uli from the Horizon have this back and forth conversation. It's got some like deep, meaningful things. And then also it's also kind of a date, and it does all the awkwardness of that. It's fantastic. Also perfect for the Christmas season. Batman Santa Claus Silent Night number 1 with that beautiful Dan Mora cover. I love the Grant Morrison Dan Mora Claus books that used to happen every year. I don't think we're getting one this year, but like those that typically happened annually. I'm a huge fan. So when we kind of did this, it's not the same universe, but like this Claus Batman crossover, I was immediately in, and it's so fun, and like Zatanna and Magic's in the mix, but you're getting all these like old tales of Claus and Batman and how they actually had adventures together. It's just so fun and perfect for the holidays. And it's also a weekly series that's coming out throughout the rest of the month. So I can't recommend that more. Jim the Sentry. I know the Sentry is one of your favorite characters.
I do love.
What did you think?
Man, this is a weird start for the series. The premise being, Sentry's powers seemingly have kind of scattered to a bunch of individuals, and we'll kind of see what happens from there. I did not expect this book basically to be a Misty Knight Jessica Jones book for almost 2/3 of it, which is not bad. I like those characters. It just, for a first issue, I don't think set up enough of the why of like the Sentry question, and like I'm all here for the premise. I just don't really fully understand the why of it, and I think for a first issue, you need to do a better job of doing that. And then by the time you get to the end, I mean, it basically feels like you get a Homelander-esque kind of character at the end. Of course, one of the people getting the Sentry's powers is going to be a not nice person. And it I don't know, maybe because it's recency bias of The Boys being so pervasive in pop culture right now, just had a lot of very like again, Homelander vibes that I don't know if I need to see again. So we'll see.
Okay.
We're never going to admit that this character should have just never been put in Marvel ever.
Oh, I was going to ask.
Like ever.
What? What's your beef with Sentry?
I feel like I feel like the whole world got Mandela'd, and we just came back to this timeline and the Sentry, like his story. And I think it's just like some cosmic joke that some larger person played on us all. Was just like, I'm going to tell them what it is. They'll just never believe it because I'm going to put in this comic character. But like, yeah, we all got retconned, and then we started reading these Marvel comics where they just like, somehow there was a Superman in Marvel we never knew about.
Well, sure. I mean, like the introduction of the character of Sentry aside, like I think some of the best Sentry stories are, like involve the Void, and we don't have the Void here either. In this first issue too, right? And I think maybe he doesn't fit in here. You don't need him or whatever. But I don't know. There's a lot to the dichotomy of personalities that this character has that I like. It's
all right.
Dumb, fun, golden super.
I'm not wading into that pool. That's a debate. Ranger Academy number 3 is you can check out my full review on the site, but like this book is so fun. I mean, Jim's a Power Rangers fan as well, and like they do such a good job of taking all of the mythology and weaving it in and out, but like also making this book very much about the students and this new wave of characters with links to the past. Billy's a teacher, all these other iconic things. There's a great scene where like I don't know if you're keeping up with the current ones, but like Yale is a professor, Doggy is a professor, and like some of those other things. They do such a great job. But it's just a very fun, actually surprisingly emotional book about like loneliness and destiny and all that kind of stuff.
This really feels like it could be
also Petrolhead. I know we raved about the first issue. Jim, did you feel like the second one delivered?
Yeah, well, 100%. Like this is going to be to me, I think like sleeper hit book going into next year. I love this book. I love everything about this book, and more people should be picking it up and reading it. Not only is it gorgeous, but like it's got a very fun story. The world immediately feels lived in, and already begins to answer a lot of questions from issue 1. And so I think it's paced really well. It looks freaking gorgeous, and the story's awesome. So why aren't you reading Petrolhead?
It is. This much very much has a sleeper vibe.
Yep.
Speaking of sleeper vibes, Bloodrick number 1 is our final book. Has it got it in studio?
I have it in studio. This is a book that I'm not normally into like big like Viking kind of story stuff, but so like the kind of the metalness of the logo and all of that is truly kind of what brought me in. And there's a great on the inside cover of this book. There's a great story from the creator, Andrew Cranky, who like says like this is an idea that he had kind of years ago that he's was trying to figure out how to make happen, and he's made it happen, and I think it looks great. It is I don't even know where to begin to how to even try to describe kind of what's going on in the book. But I really loved it, right? Like it's a story of some Viking dude who is out in the wilderness on his own and is basically like starving. There's a thing throughout the book where you basically see sound effects of his stomach gurgling in a sense, and you just see like as he's walking through different parts, and like he finally is able to hunt something, gets it, and just like kind of goes into this rage in a sense. It's wonderfully weird is what I will say about it, in a way that like I read it, and like I said, I'm not fully sure what happened in it, but I'm definitely in for the second issue. And so like if a book can do that, it is worthy of my $4.
So I also love the weirdness of the first story, but I think the second story is what made that's the one that sealed it for me.
Sure.
When he's literally just trying to shoot at a chicken?
Yeah.
There's like a chicken that's hiding behind a tree and won't come out. And he's literally passing. He's so mad at this chicken that it won't come out behind the tree that he's holding the bow for so long. His fingers are turning purple. And like all these other animals like deer and all this other are just passing him by. But he's so pissed at the chicken and he won't do it. And the end is like, yeah, great. He killed the chicken. The narrator is hilarious. Like the deadpan delivery. That one is the one that grabbed me. So I think you should definitely read it. This is really, really weird and cool and different. But that's comics this week. Obviously, you can check out More comics discussion on our flagship show and podcast on Fridays. But let us know what you want to see. We're always trying to get as many books in here as we can. Obviously, this week you can see that from every company across the board. We will continue to do that. And until next time, peace.
Thank you.